birth to college, from cradle to career, becomes a central challenge and a central opportunity as we build the America of the 21st century. So theme number one, growing inequalities across America, predicated above all else on access to quality education. Theme number two, okay, now let's skip the slide, okay? It's a devastating reminder of how many of the kids graduating from high school able to do college level work. But okay, next slide. I hate not having my clicker. Okay, here's what happened. Why here, why now? This remarkable, fundamental, irreversible transformation in the ethnic composition of the Houston, the Texas, and the American population. Why here, why now? Here's a quick history lesson. This is the number of documented immigrants coming to America in each of the decades from the 1820s to the 2000s. The big story is that between 1492 and 1965, 82% of all the human beings on the face of this planet who came to American shores came from Europe. Another 12% were Africans originally brought here as slaves to serve the Europeans. There was a handful of Chinese and Japanese working as farmers and laborers in California and Hawaii. This nation was an amalgam of European nationalities, deliberately so. It was operating under the last 40 years of that period, between 1924 and 1965, under one of the most viciously racist laws the U.S. Congress ever passed, the National Origins Quota Act. And it came out of the great anti-immigrant racist backlash that accompanied the last great wave of immigration when 15.9 million immigrants poured into America between 1890 and 1914. Coming from Europe, but not coming from Northern Europe. They're coming from Southern and Eastern Europe, and they weren't Protestants, they were Catholics and Jews, and they had no history of democracy. They're coming to take our jobs and destroy our country. We've got to stop them. And in 1924, Congress enacted this incredible act that said, from now on, only Northern Europeans will be allowed to come to this country. Use the new science of psychology and the IQ test to declare that science has proven there are 3 subspecies of the white race. The Nordics, who are biologically and intellectually superior to the Alpines, who in turn are superior to the Mediterraneans, and all of them are superior to the Jews and the Asians. And the law codified the Chinese Exclusion Act in California of 1882, the Gentleman's Agreement of Japan of 1906, to declare in the act Asians are an inferior subspecies of humanity, ineligible from ever becoming American citizens, and Asians were banned entirely from coming to America. Isn't that incredible? Talking out of the racist world of America in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, that law could not survive the shifts of consciousness with the civil rights movement of the late 50s, the Kennedy's assassination in 1965. Kennedy was the great champion of immigration. The last book published after he died was a book called A Nation of Immigrants. It was a celebration of how much immigration has brought to this country. And in 1965, Congress changed the law. Said, all right, we used to be a racist nation. We're not racist anymore. We're going to give every country recognized by the UN 20,000 visas a year, regardless of their ethnicity. So get off my back. We're not racist. We're going to continue the hallmark of American immigration policy, which is family reunification. If you're the father, mother, sister, brother, son, or daughter of an American citizen, you can come to the head of the line. First of all, we think immigration has ended, but if it hasn't, we're going to give preference to people related to those already here. And then added another provision and said, well, if you're a professional of exceptional ability, or if you have skills that are demonstrably needed in this short supply, you too can come to the head of the line. And in its debates in the 50s, Congress was saying, we need to open the door for some more British doctors, some more German engineers. It never occurred to anyone that there were going to be African doctors, Indian engineers, Chinese computer programmers who would be able for the first time in the 20th century to come to America. The law was changed in 1965. It's been called one of the great inadvertent acts that the U.S. Congress has ever passed, and the body, of course, known for its inadvertent acts and its unintended consequences. We thought, okay, what'd you do? Go back. Yeah, I haven't done, not there yet. We thought nothing would change. Everything changed. During the 1960s, suddenly 3.5 million immigrants came to this country. Only 38% were from Europe. 1970s, 5 million came, only 18% were Europeans. 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, 10 million immigrants per decade have been coming into America. 88% coming from Asia, Latin America, Africa, and the Caribbean. And the United States, that throughout all of our history, been an amalgam of European nationalities, is becoming a microcosm of the world. The first nation in the history of the world that can say we are a free people and we come from everywhere. A truly remarkable day. Having the same moment as the American economy is becoming fully integrated into a single global world economic system. America now, the only nation on earth that is a true microcosm of all the world's ethnicities, of all the world's religions. And it's a truly remarkable moment. It's happening at different rates in different parts of the country. You go where you know people. So the next slide gives us a quick sense. Come on. Oh, I hate it. Okay, New York, next. Hit it. Hit. Okay, whoa, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, followed right after DC. Hit it again by Houston, San Francisco, Washington, and then one more hit. San Diego, Boston, Atlanta, Dallas, now it's spreading to every city and town across America. No city has been transformed as fully, as completely, as suddenly, as irreversibly as Houston, Texas. This city, throughout all of our history, was a biracial southern city dominated and controlled in an automatic, taken for granted way by white men. And in the space of the last 30 years, has become the single most ethnically diverse major metropolitan area in the entire country. Next slide. One more. Okay, stop there. This is the 3 decades of the oil boom years. There was our biracial world. In 1960, there were 1.243 million people living in Harris County, Texas. 74% of us were Anglos, 20% African Americans, just 6% Hispanics, less than 0.5% were Asian. During the oil boom years of the 60s and 70s, it was Anglo pouring into Houston from everywhere else in the country. This is where the jobs were. And by 1980, Houston became the 4th largest city in America, having surpassed Philadelphia, an overwhelmingly Anglo city. After the oil bust of 1982, 34 years ago, the Anglo population of Harris County stopped growing. And all the growth of this, the most rapidly growing city in America, all of it has been the influx of African Americans, Latinos, and Asians. And here are the last 3 decades. Anglo populations dropped. There are fewer Anglos in Harris County today than there were 10 years ago, fewer 10 years ago than 20 years ago. African American population looks like it hasn't grown, but it's grown by 20% per decade, keeping pace with the population as a whole, fueled by African and Jamaican immigration, fueled by the great remigration of middle-class African Americans who had gone to northern cities in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, coming back to southern cities, Atlanta first, Houston second, African American population keeping pace overall at 20% per decade, and then surging populations of Latinos and Asians. And by 2010, Harris County was now 41% Latino, 33% Anglo, 18% African American, 8% Asian. So 2 big points to make here, right? Number 1, just think of how different the story of Houston would have been had we not become one of the great magnets for the new immigration that has fueled the growth of cities in the 21st century. Houston would have lost population. Houston would have had the same fate as other major American cities across the country that are losing their status as major cities because for 30 years they have stopped growing. Philadelphia, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Instead, Houston's one of the most vibrant, rapidly growing cities in America, tremendous entrepreneurial economy, last city to go into recession, the first one to come out, purely because of the tremendous energy, vitality, commitment to hard work of immigrants pouring into the city from Asia, Latin America, Africa, and the Caribbean. No city has benefited more from immigration than Houston, Texas. And it's ironic, but not surprising, as I'll show in a minute, to see anti-immigrant attitudes in the city when you think how different the story of Houston would have been. Had we been like Philadelphia as we were in 1980, for one reason or another, Philadelphia never became the magnet that Houston has been for the growth of cities in the 21st century. Next slide. Here's another way to envision this. This is Harris County in 1980. There are 1,720 census tracts in Harris County. In blue are all the census tracts that were majority Anglo. In red are the census tracts that were majority African American. This is what we call the African American corridor, the 3rd Ward and the 5th Ward, essentially. And then along the ship channel was the Segundo Barrio, where the Latinos were, and then a few places around the Beltway in that olive color with no majority. So this is Harris County in 1980. Here it is in 1990. Psst. Here it is in 2000, and here it is today. Isn't that incredible? With no one having planned this, no one consulted with me before all these people came. Houston finds itself, again, without anyone having thought, isn't this a great idea? Let's position Houston that way, finds itself at the forefront of the demographic transformation that occurring across all of America, nowhere more clearly seen than here in Houston, Texas. And it's not just numbers, it's also ages. So the next slide shows, I've got babies on the left, hit it again, and old people on the right, and I've got 12, hold it, stop, 12, oh my, okay, hold it there. So this is from less than 5 years to 75 years old, and here's where the Anglos are. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the baby boom. It's not until you reach people in Harris County, Texas, who are over the age of 63 that a majority of folks are still Anglos. And at each younger age group, the percentage of Anglos plummets. The percentage of African Americans, Asians, and above all Latinos surges. Here's where everybody else is. So this is a powerful picture of Houston's present and future, of everybody in Harris County, Texas, not HISD, inner city Houston, all of Harris County, of the 4 million people living in Harris County, of everybody under the age of 20, 51% are Latinos, 19% are African American, 9% are Asian, 22% are Anglos, of everybody under the age of 20. So two big things to say here. Number one, 70% of everybody in Harris County under the age of 20 is African American and Latino. The two groups overwhelmingly the most likely to be living in poverty. We know what poverty does to your ability to succeed in the public schools. And it is a safe statement to make that if Houston's African American and Latino young people are unprepared to succeed in the global knowledge economy of the 21st century, it is difficult, if not impossible, to envision a prosperous future for Houston. That is who we are and will be as the 21st century unfolds. The great crisis and question mark for us is education of that generation to ensure that they're prepared for the leadership positions of the 21st century. And the other point to make here is that this is a done deal. Close the borders. Build your fence. Close off America. Round up those 10 million people you think are here illegally and figure out where you're supposed to put. 65-year-old Anglos are not going to be making a whole lot more babies. We still we'll do the best we can. We'll keep working at it. You can go to the bank on this. No conceivable force in the world is going to stop Houston or Texas or America from becoming more African American, more Asian, more Latino, and less Anglo as the 21st century unfolds. Nothing in the world can stop that. So the only question our generation has been given is, okay, how do we make this work? How do we ensure that this diversity becomes a tremendous asset that it can be as we position ourselves in the global economy? Houston has the second largest port in the country, the 6th largest port in the world, the gateway to the global marketplace, and ensure that it doesn't end up instead tearing us apart and becoming a major liability, reducing rather than enhancing our competitiveness in the global economy. Much depends on how this generation speaks to this remarkable convergence of the two fundamental revolutions of our time that have made education so absolutely critical, and the demographic revolution that's transformed the composition of the American population. So here's Texas. Next slide. Doing great here. Now you can hit, okay, here's Texas, same thing, hit it again. Same pattern, hit it again. Texas is about 2 years behind Houston, Texas, and California, the two largest states in the union, both of which are overwhelmingly now majority minority states, and all of them showing that same pattern of age. The story of our lives is the aging of Anglos and the transformation of the young people, the millennial generation, the future of Houston. And then here's the United States today. Hit it several same time. Okay, there you go. Hit it again. Hit it again. Okay, this is America today, still an overwhelmingly Anglo country at all different parts, but again, that same pattern of the aging of the baby boomers. 82% of everybody in America over the age of 75 is Anglo, and 50% only of those under 5. And in fact, the census, right about 4 months after they gave us this data, said all of our estimates now tell us across the entire country of everybody under the age of 6, across all of America, the majority are African American, Latino, and Asian. And they said, you want to see what America will look like in 2050? Let's assume virtually no immigration and simply go by the actuarial tables. Here's the projection for the United States in 2050. Hit it, hit it, hit it. That's very close to Texas and Houston today. So it really is fair to say how we in this city navigate this transition will have enormous significance, not just for the Houston future, but for the American future. By 2050, all of America is going to